Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to bring you some video content that might be a little bit different. I did want to talk about my son Joe. Today is his 1-year angelversary. He passed away a year ago, and I wanted to just kind of bring awareness to mental health issues and to addiction issues, and not to go into any personal details, but this, I don't want his death to be in vain. I know that all of us have mental health or mental illness touch us in one form or another in our life, and oftentimes it goes hand in hand with drug addiction. And so just to honor him today, I thought that I would do a sympathy card for myself and all the rest of you. So here's to you, Jojo. I love you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with my big chopper, and I'm sorry I can't get the whole thing in frame, but I'm going to cut a piece of paper to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4 because we're making a 5 by 7 card. The die that I have is pretty large, and so I want to get it all fit onto the card best I can. And I'm going to start in with coloring the paper, and you're going to need a 5 by 7 card base as well. And what we're going to be using Oxide inks for this today, and I just wanted to show you that I'm going to create sort of a stencil here of mountains, and you just kind of rip back and forth, hills and valleys. And so this is going to be the bottom part of our card, and I saved the other scrap for my angel wings. And the reason I wanted to do the wings today and show you, because I know you guys see this all the time with this tattoo. This is dedicated to my son Jojo. And boy, it's a big old thing, isn't it? But he's with me every day, so I thought I'd share that with you, what that tattoo is about. And now we're going to get together our colors. And we're going to be using several colors: fossilized amber, dried marigold, carved pumpkin, picked raspberry, seedless preserves, and chipped sapphire. Seems like I'm missing one there. Yeah, I'm missing the that dark purple. It's over off to the side, but you'll see it here in a second. But I'm going to start in with the chipped sapphire, and I'm going to just get that at the very bottom of the page and cover it. And I'm going to take my blending foam tool, and these are the rounded dome blending tools from scrapbook.com, and I'm just going to color in at the bottom there, and I'm going to go pretty heavy. I want that to be nice and dark. Now I'm going to go in with my wilted violet, and I'm going to just move that stencil up and just kind of over a bit, and so we could just use the same one all through it. I'm keeping towards the top, and I'm using kind of the side of my dome foam so that I don't get too deep into the chipped sapphire, and I'll do that throughout. I'm going to go in with the seedless preserves, and no, I am not speeding up this video today. I just don't feel like it. Sorry. Just, you have those days. And so we're just going to go in with the chips, with the seedless preserves. This is one of my favorites, kind of this winey reddish purpley color. And then I'm going to move my stencil again, and I'll be going in with the carved pumpkin. Nope, picked raspberry. Thought I'd done that one already. So we're basically going to start from the darkest and go to the lightest, and then back again. And you could do these any colors you want, and if you already have a stencil like this, great, go ahead and use it. But again, you want to kind of keep towards the top portion of that, because you don't want to muddy up your bottom colors a whole lot. But part of what this does is it brings the sunset and the mountains or clouds, however you want to see it, together. And there I'm just showing you how I'm just using kind of the edge of that dome foam. You could use your finger blender, you could use a little brush, but you just don't want to get a bunch of that orange into the purple. So now we're going to go in with that dried marigold. And it'll be the last one that we use the stencil with. And you can see there where I've kind of muddied up the color by accidentally dragging some of that down, but it's okay, it'll be fine. And then I'm going to go in with the fossilized amber after I kind of wipe off the mess there. And I'm going to start my straight blending, so that's just going to be straighted, nothing fancy. And it's pretty quick. This is actually a pretty quick, easy card. I'm going to just get the piece of paper there so that I don't get a bunch of ink all over it. And I'm just going to start blending straight across. And I'm going to go back to dried marigold. And you'll see me pick up my blenders because I'll blend back and forth with them without any extra ink to just get that blended in really well. I'll go in with my carved pumpkin, and got to be careful with that one because that was pretty inky, the pad itself. So I just kind of dragged it off a little bit because I don't want too much. I'm going to bring that down into the other two colors, and then I'll bring the dried marigold dome foam back in and kind of blend them together there. The top doesn't matter because we're going to be blending in next picked raspberry. So you kind of see how that goes, and the picked raspberry blends beautifully with the carved pumpkin. But I will want to go back in with the carved pumpkin and just kind of smooth it out. And it doesn't have to be perfect because no sky is perfect. Well, I don't know, maybe every sky is perfect, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm going in with the seedless preserves. And I'm using my baking mat so it serves as kind of a steadier as well for my ink pads, so I don't have to go looking for my little red thing. Really like that thing. I think craft companies need to make us one with their logo on it. But yeah, that's up to them. And I'm okay with this being dark because we are going into darkness here. We're ascending into the sunset, into the starry sky. So I'm going in here with my wilted, or what was that? Wilted violet, yeah. Okay. I'm looking at it upside down. And finally, I'm going to go back in with the chip sapphire, and I'm going to blend that on down in. I go pretty far down with it, and then I'll bring back some wilted violet into it. Just kind of blend those two together. And there, the background inking part is done. Next thing up, we're going to be adding the stars. And when I add the stars, I don't want them going all the way down because that's just not how the sky looks when the sun's setting. So I'm going to take my little mask piece and then another piece of paper and just kind of lay it there on the paper. And this was Joe's favorite color. He called it Technicolor. So he was colorblind. But for whatever reason, colorblind people can see or distinguish kind of this type of gradient. I couldn't say what it looks like to them, but he called it Technicolor. I call it rainbow or prismatic or something like that. One time I made him a quilt that was just black with all kinds of colors in it, and it was his Technicolor quilt. So I like to use the Dollar Ranny Aquafine ink for my stars. You could use paint, you could use whatever you have on hand that you normally would spatter with. The main thing here is you want to keep your spatters fairly light because I don't want this to be a spatter picture. I'm just not into that, but I do want some stars here. So I've taken from very high up, about 18 inches, and just lightly tap my fan brush. If you go closer, you're going to get bigger chunks. And I want to keep the majority of it towards the very top. And that will, it will darken down a bit because that is an ink, and it's the inks underneath are water reactive. So it'll kind of quiet down, so to speak, a little bit. You could do a second coat if you wanted to, but I'm happy with this. Isn't that pretty all by itself? You don't even need anything on there, but I am going to use some things on there. I am going to kind of replicate the tattoo of my arm, which is a, you know, a heart with wings. And the wings that I'm using, this is a Lisa Jones set from Sizzix, and it's got an outline die and it's got an inner die, but I'm only using the inner die. And I have already cut these out, as you can see off to the side. And I'm going to be keeping them white. And this is just a heart die, okay? You can use any heart die you have. If you don't have a heart die, you can draw a heart and cut it out. And I'm going to be coating that in Lunar Paste in the yellow color, which name's escaping me right now. What is that color? Yeah. So card composition is going to be something like that with the heart on it. And I've already done one heart, but I'm going to do another so I can show you how I got that really cool texture to it. And I'm sure that the name of that is going to come up because I'm just going to walk over here to my desk and pick it up. You know, sometimes when you have trauma in your life, your little brains just won't work right. Slippery when wet is the color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take in, because I want to coat the whole thing and I don't want any fingerprints in it, I'm going to take, I guess I'm looking for something here. Oh, I'm die cutting the heart. Okay. All right, once I've got the heart die cut, I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper, but also a piece of a sticky note, and these are all over sticky notes. I'm going to kind of just roll it together on itself, and then I'm going to stick my heart down to it. And the reason for that is just so that I have something to hold on to other than the heart itself, because I want to coat the entire thing, including the edges. And so I'm just going to take my Lunar Paste, my slippery when wet Lunar Paste, which to me is gold. And yeah, I keep some of that plastic wrap over the top because I really love this stuff and I don't want it to dry out on me. And I'm going to glop that thing on there because I want some texture on this heart. I was watching Simon yesterday do some with texture, and I thought, you know, I really like that texture idea, so I'm going to go with that one. Just because I don't want to give this card a lot of dimension. Now this card, as I said before, I'm making for myself, but you know, I found that I've had postage issues trying to send out dimensional cards. I've had cards come back to me months later. I feel so bad because the person never got my card, so I never know if somebody did or didn't. Anyway, I'm going to glob that on pretty good, and I'm going to make sure I get the edges on, all the edges on it, so that there's no white showing at all. I'm just going to smooth that off a little bit. And it does kind of warp the paper a little, but it's not a big deal. This is the Accent Opaque 110 pound. And it holds up pretty well, and it bends back into shape when you need it to. There we go. Just make sure that's all covered. I'm going to set that aside to dry for about 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be perfectly dry, because once it's dry, once it's been 15, 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some heat to it so I can get some texture, some real cool, excuse me, some real cool kind of gilded texture. So I'm going to get my heat tool close to it, like real close, and I'm going to wait for it to start to bubble. And depending on how wet it is and how thick you got it is going to depend how the bubbles react once you get them going. Now my heat tool isn't super hot just yet, but it will be in a minute. And you want to watch for those bubbles. See how it's starting to bubble up? And I'm just going to move the tool around and try and sort of shape those bubbles. Look for small ones. If you get a big one, just press it down. It's pretty cool. And this gives you kind of like a gold nuggety texture. I grew up in the Sierra foothills of California where gold mining was a thing. And I've got a gold nugget or so that, you know, were made into jewelry. So this stuff works out really cool for that kind of texture. And you just peel it off of the sticky tape. And you can just trim off or wipe down the edges. And there you've got yourself a cool little gold nugget heart. Because my Joe had a heart of gold. So that's what I'm giving him today. And I did spray these wings down with Technique Junkie's Shimmering Bliss in the iridescent. And you can't really see it very well on camera, but it does give them kind of that gossamer look, like you might think a wing would look. And what I want to do is I want to stick these down, but I do not want the tedious act of trying to glue them. And I'm kind of getting my placement, and you'll see that I get it a little bit off, but it's no big deal. Like I always say, a mistake's a mistake. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's a handmade card. But what I'm going to use is I'm going to use this stuff here. It's called Artist Tack. And I get this on Amazon. I'll make sure I link it below. And it's a sticky stuff that basically has lots of tiny little dots. And so first you got to work to get this thing apart. And that's always the job for me. And you'll see I'm going to struggle with this quite a bit. I don't have any nails. Well, I try not to have nails. And so I'm just going to fight with it until it finally comes apart for me. I might just pick up a tool here and see if I can get the tool to do it. If anybody knows any tricks to get these to come apart easily, just that bottom part, I appreciate the tip there. See, I can't see it well enough. I don't have the world's best eyesight, so I'm going to go back to this fight and finally get it. And the struggles of crafting. I'm going to peel that apart, and you'll see that there's a sticky side. And you want to try and keep your fingers out of that, because it will leave little, I don't know, I call them sticky boogers. Leave little sticky boogers, but just lay them down on that sticky side, and then lay the carrier paper back down, or the cover paper back down, and just burnish them in. And that's going to stick all that little glue to all those little pieces of that wing. And again, I'm trying not to touch. You know, inevitably you're going to touch some, but I'm going to grab my tweezers and try and pull that up with my tweezers so that I can touch as little as possible. And then I'm going to just look at my placement and just kind of lightly lay it there while I grab the other one. And what I want is I want them pretty close together at that top little loop. And I get it a little bit off, but it's fine. I'm just going to pat it down, and boom, it's stuck. Just like that. And then I'm going to actually take my glue and glue the heart on. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Reptile Adhesive on that. The Reptile Adhesive is what I use for just about everything. It glues everything, wood, everything. But I use it for crafting as well. And that little yellow bit is because my pin that I have in there is starting to rust. And so it leaves a little bit of rusty bit, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. I'm just going to put that down. Just going to hold it there for a second. You see it flattens out nicely with regard to how it was kind of a little bit warped. It'll flatten down. Okay, and there you have the top portion of that card. And I'm going to be gluing that down to a piece of 5x7 card base. But before I do that, I'm going to actually grab a piece of scrap paper. And I'm going to color the edges of that. And I'm going to use my scrapbook.com metallic gold. And I'm afraid this ink pad's getting a little dry because this is about all I ever use it for. So I'm just basically rubbing that gold color on there. And in person, it does have a beautiful shimmer. And you could do this. You could emboss this. I know I've shown you how to emboss before. Or you could leave it white, or you could use colored paper. You know, whatever it is that, you know, you're thinking of when you're creating a sympathy card for someone else. And nobody ever wants to have to create these, but let's face it, at least in most of the people I know, our age group, we're losing our friends, we're losing our parents, and we're losing our children. So, you know, nothing means more than to receive a card from someone when you're grieving. When I lost Joe, I got 2 cards, and both of them were from unexpected people, but I was really, really, really touched by it. So I'm just spreading this glue all over to make sure it's nice and stuck down. And that gold ink, by the way, is a pigment ink. I'm just gonna go glue that down and make sure, see, I've got a little bit of wiggle room before that glue starts to dry. And I'm gonna press down on it just to get it all stuck down. And see, that little part just barely sticks over. It's gonna be fine. And it looks like right about there looks like a good place to put a sentiment. So my camera stopped recording, I guess, or I forgot to hit the record button, but I'm fighting there with my magnets, and I'm using one of the sentiments from the Caring Poppies, was it? From Tonic. And it's a brand new stamp, so it's pretty sticky. They are photopolymer stamps, and they're good quality stamps, but new stamps are just a nightmare sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and add that extra reinforcement there of tape to keep my paper down, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit it with my anti-static powder bag. And I'm going to be using the Versamark ink, and I'm going to be using the Wow Gold embossing powder, and I'm going to go ahead and emboss that sentiment in gold. And you'll see here, it doesn't really, I think I've got a broken letter or a broken operator, which would be me. I can't seem to get one of these letters completely covered, but it's okay. It'll be fine. It's a card for me, and I don't mind. But it does say, keeping you in my heart. And go ahead and pour my embossing powder on there and hit that with the heat here. I can see already that it's probably not going to work. It's going to miss a couple of spots. So I'm going to do it again because it missed a little bit much for my taste to say it's okay. See there where it kind of missed the K somehow. So I'm going to go ahead and just stamp it one more time. I try and lay that in there pretty straight. It doesn't really matter in the end, you're going to be cutting it off, but I'd like to get as fairly even cut as I can possibly get. And honestly, this card doesn't even really need a sentiment. It says it all without words. And, you know, you could put another sentiment inside if you wanted to, or leave it blank and write something in yourself. Or use it, you know, use the same method for like a Valentine's card or something like that, which I did do some of my Valentine's cards this year. Yep, with that same set. Again, I have other hearts, but they're smaller, and I wanted the biggest heart that I had. I have some, but they're like, I don't know, they're really hard dies, and they tend to bend and warp my plates in my machine, so I think they're meant for heavier material, like maybe felt or something like that. But anyway, let's go ahead and just cut out that sentiment there, and I'm just going to use my little chopper for it and just try and get it as even as I possibly can and cut that thing down. Now guys, I hope I didn't bum you out too much in this video. I did feel like it was important for me today to get a video up, because I promised I would at least once a week, Tuesday or Wednesday, and you know, go ahead and raise awareness for drug overdose and mental illness, and let you know that, you know, I'm thinking of you, and I'm thinking of all the other parents and siblings and family members who have lost someone to mental illness or to drug overdose, and also to everyone who's just lost someone. It's just, losing somebody you love is, it's like, for me, and particularly with a child, honestly, I thought in my whole life, I thought I'd never be able to survive if I lost one of my children, but here I am. I'm not the same person, but you know, I've got children, I've got living children as well, and so, you know, I just wanted to go ahead and dedicate this card to Joe. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment of silence just to honor him.